Ollie, this is like pure inside the ropes like chat, and a lot of people who've been to like the live shows like will kind of get this. So when I first started with Inside the Ropes, I met Ollie through Inside the Ropes, right? So when my first show with Inside the Ropes was the Sting tour, and Kenny just needed extra hands for Glasgow. And I'm really friendly with Jamie Kennedy, who is the commentator and announcer for ICW. I'm really good friends with him, and he basically put my name forward and was like, "Oh, Jen will be a really good person to help out." So I was like, "Okay." And I'd never met Kenny before. Obviously, knew of him because I'd been to like about three Inside the Ropes shows as a
Mm-hmm.
fan. So I was like, "Oh, I know Kenny," and I was like, "This is exciting." And then obviously worked with that, and like I knew obviously Molly and stuff, so I knew a few people, so it was all good. So worked there. Ollie wasn't on the team at the time, but from there, then people were like, "Oh, Jen and Kenny must be going out." To which I was like, I'm superiorly lacking in an appendage.
Because I remember, because Kenny and I have podcasted together since like 2016, I think, was when I started
Yeah.
doing like SmackDown with him, and it's
Yeah,
kind of morphed over the years.
that's kind of when I started in Inside the Ropes as well,
Yeah.
2016,
Well, because I
2015.
started with Inside the Ropes in 2014 doing like NXT stuff. And then, like, when my co host died, it was like a whole thing that, we kind of like
Yeah.
shuffled around and stuff. RIP Bob, you were great. But like Kenny and I have been consistently together on air since I think 2016. And now that we do the retro stuff, like we're pretty much just podcast married at this point. It's just
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. I mean, you two are like literally like the golden couple of podcasting right
we
now.
bicker all the time, which is great.
Exactly.
Like,
That's
I love
why,
him to
because
bits.
you've been together for so bloody
We
long.
have, like,
The
and I love him
honeymoon
to bits.
period's
I always
gone.
tell him, like, you're gonna, the world will end and it'll be like cockroaches and you and me talking wrestling. Even though we'll just talk
Exactly.
about cockroach wrestling because all the wrestlers won't be there, but we still will be talking about it.
Exactly.
But no, like, because I remember people on Twitter would say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you and Kenny must be together," like blah blah blah, and I'm just like,
I know. It
no,
was so weird.
like,
But I think like people used to like say, so they'd be like, "Oh, Jen and Kenny must be together," and that's how Jen works there because that's how Kenny's girlfriend. Like, to be fair, I got that as well when I first started in ICW. I think one of the first things I ever saw about me on Twitter was who's she shagging, and I was like,
well, I get
nobody.
asked that at
I was
shows
like,
too.
nobody,
Like when I
nobody,
would go to
you.
wrestling shows by myself or whatever, people would be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
who are you shagging here?" And I'm just like, I mean, they
yeah.
wouldn't say
Well, to be
shagging because it was
fair,
America, but I'm just like, no, but I just really like wrestling. I'm sorry.
exactly. It's so bizarre. Like, and to be fair, when people were asking me that, I was like, eh. At the time, my boyfriend was in a really super successful band, and I was like, you're that guy who has nothing to do with wrestling whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was yeah, really bizarre. So that happened, and then when Ollie and I first worked together, I think we first worked together on Heyman. Actually, which was hilarious because that's
Yeah.
when we first worked
Oh yeah,
together.
that was the first one that I did too.
Yeah.
So
So I think that's when we first worked
wait, no,
together.
Ollie wasn't
And
at the Heyman tour.
oh no, maybe it wasn't Heyman. Maybe it was Steiner. Maybe it was
Yeah,
Steiner.
yeah, yeah.
It
Because he
must have been
wasn't at the
Steiner
Heyman tour.
then.
Because I remember specifically because like I was bummed that he wasn't going to be there because he was elsewhere
Okay.
at the time. And so
Right,
because
it
no, I
must
didn't
have been
meet
Steiner.
Ollie until Goldberg. I think it was.
Okay. Right, so it must have been Steiner
Or no, I
then.
didn't meet him till WrestleMania.
Um,
That's what it was. And then like we
so
worked together the first time at Goldberg.
So yeah, no, I literally, yeah, we started working together, and it was just like the weirdest thing. Like you just kind of hit it off with somebody. Like we just had like the same like really immature sense of humor,
I think you
and
probably
then
were a brother and sister in a
no,
previous
I, I,
life.
I think we were because I think like it was on what to I can't even remember tours now. Like I honestly can't remember, but we were on a train and there was one day because he was talking about when he was in Australia because like Ollie's traveled. Like Ollie is actually a fascinating person to like listen to. He's had such a fun
Mm-hmm.
life. Like he's traveled everywhere. He's done so much, and he was saying about how he traveled to Australia, and like we were both like really, really hungover on this train, and we were like that, like proper, like jammies still on, like hoods up, sunglasses on,
Yeah.
and then I just started speaking in an
The
Australian
travel
accent to him,
stance is basically.
absolutely, but not glamorous at all because we were on a
No,
train.
no, that's the thing. People think that travel is glamorous. It's not. It's like sleep masks and earplugs
Well,
and.
not even that. Like we were on like an actual like commuter train,
Oh,
so we
yeah.
were like
Then it's just
literally don't
like
even get a table.
leaning on the window and hoping
Yeah,
you don't catch something from it.
totally, exactly. So like we were sitting there, and then I started speaking to him in an Australian accent, and then he started speaking to me, and then it became this like Moho and Jesse. So he's Moho, I'm Jesse. I don't know why, but like we were from Brisbane, and we met in Brisbane, and we came up with this whole backstory. But the thing is like we kept egging each other on, and everyone around us was like, "Will you shut up? It's like 8 in the morning. The last thing we need to know is this," and we were like, then we're like, let's get drinks. So
Uh-huh.
that's basically how it kind of our romance blossomed, or our bromance, because we have a bromance.
You're way
And
more of a bromance than a romance. It's so
oh yeah.
weird
Oh yeah.
because like
But
I
it's so funny because we are so like we literally are together all the time when we're
uh-huh.
on tour, and we're always like oh like giggling and stuff. Folk are like, those two flirt so much, and it's like it's so not even flirting. It's like Ollie has the most hottest girlfriend in the world.
She's
Like Eloise
gorgeous.
is just, she's stunning, right? Absolutely stunning. And it's just so funny like how when people are like, you guys are flirting, and it's like, we're actually not. We're talking about like jobby jokes or
That's pretty much
it's just
it.
like that is literally it. And
Or
we just we
sandwiches.
exactly like that's what we're talking about. We're talking about like stealing Kenny's booze, like because Kenny obviously buys like a vodka, like a big bottle of vodka, and me and him drink half of it. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
like it's just so funny. Like, but everyone was like, oh, they're together, and it's like we couldn't be any further than together. Like we're just best pals. Like it's so funny.